Nice to have you. Hi, Miss Karen.
Hi, Irene. How you doing? Yeah, the reason
Hi, everyone. This is my co-host, Karen Fitzgerald. And Karen is usually in New York City, but right now she's in Buffalo, New York, avoiding COVID-19.
exactly.
Hi, Susie.
I got up here with a miracle. My sister's on the call somewhere, but I got up here via a miracle with my sister. She was supposed to come and visit me, and she had an Amtrak ticket. I'll just tell that very quickly. And she, a couple of days before they were watching the news, she got really nervous, and she and her husband said, "Why don't you take the ticket and come up here and stay for a while?" And I thought this was going to be a nothing. So I bought 3 days worth of clothing. I was going back to New York, and the next day they closed New York down. So I have been up here joyfully for 2 months, and I'm very grateful. Yeah, it's good.
So glad to have you, hon. Glad you're supporting me. Okay. So let's take a deep breath, everybody. All right. And just get yourself grounded right here and right now, and congratulate yourself that you're willing to stand out in possibility. And the possibility is that you have no guarantees and no idea about what's going to happen today. What I'm hoping happens today is that you open up to, you just open up yourself to taking a look at you and your relationship with money, okay? And your relationship with money, like your relationship with anything else on this planet, comes from your perceptions, your beliefs, your ideas, what you've been dragging around with you for a long time. So here's some money, right? This is completely 100 and a zillion percent neutral. This does no feelings about you, but you've got a lot of feelings about it. It does not care what you do with it. It does not care what you believe about it. It has no feelings whatsoever. But if I took this and I ripped it in half, I'm guessing that some of you would have some feelings about this $20 bill being destroyed. I would have some feelings about the $20 bill being destroyed. My husband would say, "What? Give me my money back," right? I mean, it generates so much attachment, so much feeling for us. And that's what we're going to look at today. Today, we're going to look at our feelings, our beliefs about money, whether we're hoarders or whether whether we hoard our money or we blow our money or we have some kind of relationship in between with our money. That's what we're going to look at today. Next Saturday, we're going to be looking at some different aspects of it. The whole workshop is not just about these 2 Saturday sessions. On Tuesday and Thursday of this coming week, Karen and I will be on Facebook Live. You're going to get some homework at the end of this, some practices that I want you to help you become more aware of how you relate to money. And you will be able to share with us on the Facebook group whether any questions you might have or what experiences you're having about it, what you're learning about yourself if you choose to share it. The Facebook group will be private. This video, this Zoom group will be recorded, but it doesn't go anywhere outside of this group. It's not going to go anyplace else. If it does, it'll only be clips of me and Karen. It won't be any clips of anyone else. So feel free to open yourselves up to share as much as you'd like to share, okay? And if you don't want to share, that's fine too. But we're going to give you a couple of opportunities, but there's so many of us, we can't talk for very long. So the Tuesday and the Thursday Facebook Lives are basically about supporting you in this process. And then there'll be a third Facebook Live the Tuesday after next week's class, and that'll be a way you can kind of wrap up what you gained and maybe some questions you have moving forward. I might be able to give you some more exercises to carry out. Today, we're going to start with defining some things and giving you a couple of little concepts. It's not very complicated. 90 minutes is going to go very quickly, but this is just the beginning. Just remember that it's just the beginning. And you can, you have my email. and you can use the email to give me any questions or any comments you have about what's going on with you with this experience. When I teach from experience. I mean, I want you to have an experience with it. The relationship you have with money is very experiential. Money carries feelings in your body, a lot of them. It is very, very loaded. It's probably just as loaded as any sexual relationship you have. And we talk about sexual relationships. We don't talk so much about our money relationships. Those are the things, our money relationship for many of us is a big form of shame, whether we're ashamed that we have too much of it and we don't want others to know. We're ashamed we have too little of it. We're ashamed about how we make it. We're ashamed of how we use it. I mean, it's just loaded, so loaded. And it really doesn't matter whether it's to the holding on to a pile or to the not having any to hold on to. It's still loaded. I've worked with people who are very, very wealthy, and it surprised me over the years how much agony and how much shame they have about their wealth. When I grew up poor, I did grow up poor as a kid, and for me, as I think most people who grew up with not a lot of money or a lot of wealth in their family, we grew up thinking that, well, money's the answer. Once you have it, what's your problem? You shouldn't have any problems, right? And so many of the wealthy people that I worked with, I ran a group at one point in my career where I didn't want people to know. They felt like they were on the outside, like, for example, going to college and everything was paid for them. And they were with kids that were knocking themselves out, trying to support themselves through college, so that guilt feeling like they don't want to be on the outside. They don't want to be different. How we all want to belong. And then for me, or who maybe grew up with less, I had a really, really hard time when I have friends as an adult who played golf at private golf clubs and would invite me. I never, ever could feel like I belonged there. That just felt like a world that wasn't a part of the world I grew up in. It all has to do with this thing that is completely neutral. So we're going to begin looking at the feelings. If you have any questions during this, you can go into the chat, can go into the chat, and if you're not understanding, or if you think I'm talking too fast, or you want me to repeat, just go into that chat and put that as a comment. Uma's watching, and she's gonna let me know, okay? And Uma, you just feel free to stop me at any point, all right? So, the first thing I want to talk to you about are beliefs. And because I can't see myself completely, Uma, can you see my fancy sign?
I see
you guys
it.
Can see it? Okay, good. All right. So beliefs are not law. They're not law, okay? We made them up. We either made them up ourselves out of experience, or we made them up from what somebody else told us. When we were kids, for most of us, whatever we were told by our parents, I'm talking about when we were little, right? We thought that was the rule. That was law. No question about it. Our parents were the first gods of our understanding, whether it was parents or foster parents or grandparents, whoever was raising us, they were the first gods of our understanding. And those gods, they made the rules for how life was supposed to be, whether it was from how they behaved with us or what they told us verbally. So the first thing I want you to write about is God. Whether you believe there's a God or you don't believe there's a God, write a list of words that you would use to describe the God of your childhood. Scary, lying, not existent, a ghost in the sky, whatever comes up for you. What were your beliefs about this God that you were learning about as a kid or learning not to believe in? Okay, it doesn't matter whether you believed or you didn't, you still had some influence about it. So just take 1 minute. This is just a quickie. You don't have to bother with the music, okay? I just want them to start a little bit of a list. I'm just going to give you 1 minute to do this. Breathe in when you're doing the writing. God was, God is. For many of us, we've changed our relationship with whatever we thought that God was as we grew. But think about it when you were a munchkin. What did you think God was? All right. You can always go back to this. You can write the questions down and go back to it and look at it. Anything that we give a lot of power to, like this, we are making into a God. We're making it into a God. So what are some of those words? What are some of those words? Can you put them in the chat that you're coming up with? Can you show me the chat?
We've got authority, scary, unpredictable, disappointing, all powerful, all accepting, loving, powerful, judging, apart from me, no spiritual connection, just a figure, mean,
So
scary.
disappointing, scary, unpredictable. How many of us think money is unpredictable, whether you're going to have it or you're not going to have it? Unpredictable. That's a great word for the way many of us feel about money, right?
Mm.
Scary, loving. Most of us, I don't think got taught about loving. Well, that's not true. I shouldn't say that. I'm talking from my own experience. One of the things that I don't have around money is necessarily a loving experience when I was young. What I would like, if I could zap you all with my wishes and my intentions for you all, is that your relationship with money is going to be peace. That you're going to have a peaceful relationship with money. Can I see some hands raised for people who already do have a peaceful relationship with money? Sandy, yes. Maybe you should be teaching the class. But for most of us, we don't, right? What I'd like you to write about right now, just very quickly, think about something you do have a peaceful relationship with. Not money, but in your life, something you do have a peaceful, comfortable relationship with. Not difficult for you at all. I can give you an example in my life because I thought about this obviously before I'm asking you. I have a peaceful relationship with keeping my house organized and clean. And I know for some people that's like, that's like really difficult. They can't keep it organized. They can't keep on top of it. And that's always been easy for me. I think maybe because I like order, and I find when I'm upset or whatever, I like doing something concrete, like cleaning. That's not everybody, but I can honestly say that I have a peaceful, balanced relationship with it. Our co-host, Karen, I always envy her because she has a very comfortable, peaceful relationship with exercise. She keeps that in her life all the time. So she keeps in good shape all the time. She finds peace with it. It's not a big deal for her. She doesn't have to push herself out there or struggle with that relationship. Would you agree, Karen?
Absolutely. Yeah. And it actually, and specifically dance. Like it's always been for me, dance, and anything with music. Singing is another one. I would say singing is another one, and dance. But the dance started when I was a little kid, and it's been different forms over the years, but and it also releases stuff from my body, which is also great. Yeah.
So can you guys put anything up inside the chat box that is something that you have a comfortable, peaceful relationship with?
We've got baking, spirit
Gardening.
and my angels and my guides, gardening, staying home is peaceful, good friends, yoga, my family, nothing.
Family, huh?
We have a nothing. response.
Must
Reading.
be-
Go ahead, Irene.
No, what I was going to say, thanks, Uma. What I was going to say is, I want you all, did everybody find something, at least one thing that you can honestly say, I've got a peaceful relationship with that aspect of my life or being? You got one, Mickey? All right, so.
Susan had a struggle.
My wife.
Susan said nothing. Susan said nothing.
Susan Swanson?
Yep.
Does it feel like everything, how about your relationship with the program that we're in together? Can you put the mic on for her, Uma? On for Susan?
I'll unmute you, Susan, 1 second. Okay, Susan.
I'm not really, because I've moved so much and I can't find the peace that I found in the early years because I keep changing the community. The closest I can come is what you said, Irene. Like I need things orderly around me, but I don't know that I feel peace about it. I just do it. I can't believe this is a hard one, but it really seems to be a hard one for me.
I haven't noticing. Just haven't noticing. What's the difficulty feel like in your body?
Anxiety when you ask a question.
Okay. all
I
right.
feel sad about it. Yeah.
Yeah. And that'll be a great topic for journaling for you. Just have a noticing of it.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing, huh? But for the rest of you, can you nod your head so I can tell? Do you find something in your life where you know you have peace with it? You don't have a struggle with it. You're okay with it? So I'm seeing some heads nod, right? So I want you to just notice that peaceful feeling in your body. That comfortable feeling, like it's not a challenge, it's not an issue. Obviously, some days I'm not excited about cleaning. I don't mean that, but it's not a big struggle. It's not a great big deal. It's a nothing deal. Just do it. And then feel good about the results, but just do it, okay? So that's the place that I would like us all to arrive to around money. That it's a real neutral place. It's a place of peace. And it's not a place of peace here. It's a place of peace within our bodies. It's a place of comfort that we come home to. When we have a place of peace inside of us with relationship to anything, we don't have a lot of judgment about it. We have a lot of choice about it. It gives us a freedom. Like I'm not one of those people that would be embarrassed if you if you just dropped in because the house is organized, it's orderly. You know, but I've had friends who don't want you to come over because they're all embarrassed about how things look. You know, so there's no freedom in that. Is this making sense?
Irene,
Yes, Mickey.
I have a peaceful relationship with money when I have a lot of it in the bank. And I'm not talking wealth, but it's security. So when I have a lot of money in the bank, I feel at peace. But it also I tend to want to keep it there. So when I drop below a certain amount, I start getting anxious.
So it's not a give and take. It's got a real judgment on it. Because we can't always control how much we have. We lose a job, it's going to change. The stock market does something, it's going to change dramatically, right? So it's a conditional piece you have with it. And having to keep so much in the bank is probably calling a lot of your actions. Like, I can't have that because it might drop below, or I can't have that experience because it might drop below, or I can't let up at work because it might drop below. So it's not really a peaceful relationship. It's quantified. It's right.
Yeah.
So take a deep
It's
breath.
it's also something that I'm working on because I've done work with you. I work regularly with you, thank God. And it used to be my value as a person. a lot of my value. So if I was failing and I didn't have a lot of money, I felt like a failure as a person.
Mm-hmm. And now you're coming to like more of a, it's not quite as, it doesn't have to do with, how do I want to say, you're changing your beliefs about it. You're making it more right-sized. And
Right.
it's the place you want to right-size more because it's a fluid relationship, right? Right. Right. Okay, anyway, so thanks, Mickey, for sharing. So what I want you to do is I just want you to hold on to that and just have that experience of what we would like it to feel like. This isn't about, well, okay, if I won the lottery, then it's all going to be okay. Because we're going to be in relationship with money every day for the rest of our beings. While we're here on planet Earth, we're going to be in relationship with, and it's going to be an ebb and a flow and an ebb and a flow, right? But it doesn't have to be like a zonk up and falling down. It doesn't have to be in this high drama if we learn to check our beliefs about it. And for most of us, I believe, Mickey, you're right on target, that the difficulty comes with we have our self-worth very much wrapped up around it. When, I want you to take a piece of paper and I want you to divide it into 6 parts. This little writing exercise is going to take a little bit of time. Okay, and we're going to have some music while you do it. I want you to divide your life, the years of your life into 6 parts. Like I'm 74, so each one of my blocks would represent 14 years, right? 1 to 14, 15 to what, 28, 28 to whatever. Okay, do you get it? So each block is going to represent a 1/6 of your life. In the blocks, when you get the ages written down, I want you to think about what was going on financially for you during that time. What were you watching with your parents? What's the first thought you have about money? I remember from like 1 to 14 when I found out that if I helped people, if I worked, then I could get some money. So I started to feel some power around that. I also felt some obligation around that because they didn't have it at home. So I always felt like I needed to turn it over. I needed to give it to my parents. So write down for yourself during those six blocks what was going on for you. You're going to get about 8 minutes or so to do this. You don't need to make whole sentences. You can just put some words up that kind of give you the idea of what was going on for you at the time. And take a deep breath. And notice if you have fear around doing this. Notice if you have resistance around doing it. This is just you coming home to your money story, whatever it is. Is everybody pretty much done? Can I see some hands if you're okay? All right, and obviously it's something you can go back to. All right. So can you attach some beliefs from any of those sections? I've done a lot of this work over the last 35 years or so because I had a lot of issues. I mean, I still have stuff I need to look at, no question about it. It's obviously an evolving relationship. But I didn't realize how much about my, it's called codependent spending, about how much of my codependent spending was connected to my very early childhood, just trying to make my mom happy and be okay and not have her be worried. So I was always like, I need to give. I'm Irene, and I owe. I need to keep giving. I need to keep giving. And that's gotten me into trouble sometimes. You know, codependent spending is a kind of spending where you're always taking care of other people and you're hurting yourself, like not having enough in the savings or struggling to pay your own bills because you're bailing somebody else out. That was a long, hard process for me to get over that. And I can still do it. You know, I can still do it today. Does anybody feel comfortable sharing any kind of an awareness that they got? We'll give you a couple minutes to share with us. Babs, I see your hand up. Did I? Can you put the mic on for her, Uma?
Yeah, I was, can you hear me okay?
I can.
It's interesting. I like this exercise. I was amazed that some feelings came up. The music added to that, the beauty of them coming up. But even though I've had money, yes, feast or famine, the ages 42 to 56, so much sadness was coming up and I felt remorseful. I felt regret. So I got my dictionary and looked up regret, which has to do with guilt. Actually, no, I'm sorry. Remorse has to do with guilt, and regret has to do with sorrow, grief, loss, and remembering with a longing. And I realized I'm still yearning for something that I'm thinking is the past, as though a part of me doesn't believe there can be a future. That just dawned on me. I feel like, oh, I had it, now I don't. So it's something really made me want to cry every time I looked over these ages. I'm not sure what it means, but that's what I did notice.
And the way you'll find out what it means is to explore it later on your own. You know, explore it in your writing. When you're looking at feelings that you don't understand, try not to ask yourself, why am I feeling this? Ask yourself, what am I feeling? I'm feeling a lump in my throat, feeling a knot in my chest. I'm feeling myself swallowing hard, you know, trying to push something down. When you ask why, you're going into your head, and in the head, we're coming up with the old beliefs, or we're coming up with the old rules, or we're coming up with the old shoulds, coulda, wouldas, whatever, but we're not getting into what the experience is. With what am I feeling, you're going to start to uncover the experience. And it's just an unfinished experience. We finish experiences with grief. We don't finish experiences with anger. We think we finish them with anger. Like, I'll tell that son of a gun, you know, because anger is always on top of fear or sadness and hurt. So if we're hanging out in the sadness, I mean, if we're hanging out in the anger and the resentment, we haven't felt what's underneath. The fear of the sadness. And it sounds like you're looking at some stuff that maybe just needs to be finished, you know?
Thank you.
Don't run from it. Running from it is how we lock it in place. And if we're getting into any kind of self-pity or jealousy or depression or hopelessness around money, there's a lot of unresolved either grief or anger inside of us around some old stories that are going on, because they block us from any possibility or potential that we could be standing in. Money's a flow. It's an energy that flows in and out and around our lives. do you feel like there's anything you want to share about something specific that happened during that time, or are you're not comfortable doing it?
Yes, I will share in that particular time. The beginning, I had money. I was married. I was well taken care of. And then I got divorced. And what makes me sad is that I had an abundance of it, even more so after the divorce, because more was given me. I was not a good steward of it. There was some codependency in there, trying to keep my kids in the lifestyle that they'd remembered. But I know I feel poorly about myself. It makes me sad that I did not handle it well. I could have done better. I could have saved. I could have thought things through. I didn't. And I have some, I can't say self-hatred, but I don't know. I feel badly about myself during that time, or as I look back at the time.
Sure. You have regret, and you could have like, oh, I could have had a V8. What the hell was I thinking, right?
Right.
And so you've got some self-forgiveness.
Mm-hmm.
And the way you get some self-forgiveness is you find some compassion for yourself. So you go back and look at what beliefs was I operating out of during that time? Or what was I in denial about? What did I have shut down that I wouldn't take a look at?
And for me, I see it was grief. My husband died a year after we divorced. So I grieved. I didn't grieve. That's probably underneath a lot of that, is a lot of grief and sadness. So when I looked up regret, and it says grief, loss, remember with longing, what you're telling me makes sense. I haven't dealt with some of that. I thought I had, but maybe not.
Sure. And
Thank you.
when you have a divorce, it's a big change. I mean, it's the end of a dream and an end of a future that you had planned when you first got into that relationship. Does anybody relate? I mean, the reason I want you guys to share is because I think we can wake up each other, and we can wake up each other's experiences. Thanks for sharing. Is anybody else willing to share? Kim. Give Uma a chance to turn you on. Kim Lawrence, Uma.
Hi. I have a lot of experiences going down, as you know, Irene. But I had an experience when I was about 20, and my father passed away. And I inherited a lot of money, and I was in college, and I was getting all these checks through my inheritance, and he died of cancer, and I felt guilty. I felt like I was being paid off for my father's death. It was really, really hard to accept this money, and I struggled with it, and I just honestly I wanted to give it away, most of it. I knew it was there to help me, but I didn't do very well with it. And it was strange. It was a very strange feeling. Money's been tough. I grew up in a world where both parents, my dad was a hardworking doctor, and my mom was a lawyer. I didn't see them much, and money wasn't something I was told. I was told to work hard for, and it was at a comfort level. It didn't really think about it from ages 1 to 14. It was just there. So now I'm separated and moved back from the UK to the US in January, and it's just been a roller coaster with money, pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
So now I'm in scary phase.
All right, take a deep breath, huh? Sounds like you can relate a bit to Babs, huh?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Does anybody relate to Kim or Babs, or have something else? Was it Sandy? Did you want to share, hon? Did I see your hand go up? Kenyon?
I think I was just agreeing, but I do have something to share. I think
Which quadrant is it from? Which section?
Well, I'm looking at the flow of the mentality.
You mean like a theme going through all of them?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And I've never been money hungry. I've always been kind of like, it comes to me easily. I earn really well, but I see once I map this out that I did a lot of things for that to happen. That my education, my being super driven to succeed, the feelings that I had of having to perform really, really, really well for my dad to love me translated in many ways into money and having to earn money because that was just another measure of performance. And I think that money for me was really just a measure of performance.
Your value and your worth.
Yes, exactly. And so, but at the same time, I was never very grabby with it. I've always been quite generous with my money.
So you needed it more to prove who you were, not so much to use it or have a lot of things or.
Yeah, some of it was really because I only need so much, and I certainly want to have savings, but I would just help people out, give to people. Like I bought houses. I mean, it was like this. I bought houses for friends, but I owned them. They paid rent to me, but they couldn't have gotten into a place. The credit was so horrible. So I would buy the place and then rent it to them.
What would bring you to the to this class? What would bring you here to this workshop? What's not good for you with your relationship with money? Is it too much about it?
When you first showed the dollar bill, I felt this emotion right then, because I wasn't sure what I was coming to the seminar for. I know that I have a really, really strong relationship to somebody taking my money or using my money without my approval. That's huge. And that's happened with my partner. The spending thing. And it has caused huge trauma in our relationship. And so we're working on that together. But I want to know, why is it so visceral?
You're having an experience, and this is about everything. If you're having an experience in your life where the good part of your brain says, I really only deserve about, a couple of handfuls of feelings, but I'm giving it a truckload of feeling, it's got way too much power, then you're standing somewhere in your history. So it's probably up somewhere in that theme or somewhere in that, in your story there. We'll be unfolding some of that, okay?
Okay.
Thanks, hon.
Thank you.
Anyone else want to share? Or you all want to run away from me now?
Heather made a chat in the chat. Heather made a comment or two. Did you
Let
want
me
to?
talk after, but I just recognized Susan Bolton or Suzanne.
Christina wants to.
And Christine wants to too?
Yeah.
Okay.
You want to do Suzanne first?
Yeah, Suzanne first. Go ahead.
Hi. Yeah, I mean, I'd seen some of this before, but I mean, as a child, like from 0 to 9, my dad was an airline pilot and made decent enough money, but he had a real hunger for buying land. So we lived on a farm, and I mean, they farmed cattle on the side for beef, and we had a garden, and my mom sewed our clothes. So the whole story was that there was never enough. Even when they had money, there was never enough because they never spent it on us. And then I saw my mom not being paid for her work, like all the work that she did, you know, gardening, kids, like there was no pay. And then, so then from 10 to 18, they bought another piece of land and subdivided it. And the promise was always, oh, we're going to get a new house, because we lived in this decrepit old farmhouse. But then they did the subdivision and we didn't get the new house. So I'm seeing that, you know, it doesn't matter how much the belief, it doesn't matter how much money you have, life isn't going to change. It's not going to get any better. And I notice like this real theme in my life of saving, and like others have said, you know, feeling safer when there's a certain amount of money in the bank account and all of that, but a real difficulty spending money on like furniture or comfort or beauty or
When there's hoarding, there's no
pardon me?
joy.
Yeah.
Hoarding of money, there's no joy.
Mm-hmm.
When you're going in the opposite direction, when there's too much borrowing and living beyond your means, there's no peace.
Mm. Yeah.
So for you, joy wasn't allowed, or it wasn't a priority.
Oh my God, no. There was no play, there was no joy, there was no and it's so interesting because my parents are like exceptionally wealthy in terms of land, but they've always lived like paupers. And my dad just died on Monday.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and yeah, and it's just always been a mess. Like money is just always, there's been fighting over it in the past, and like it's just, yeah, it's very charged. And
So money's just been this unforgiving, unrelenting, right, energy that doesn't allow for joy or play or fun. And there's never enough.
yeah, because there was never anything to my dad, never anything more important than money. Like if like that was always the barometer of everything. Like more land, more accumulation, more wealth, more, yeah.
Okay. And so what you have is a belief that's carried from your father, because somewhere you can't let that belief go.
Yeah, no, it's true.
So that's when your beliefs are pushing you around without your permission. This isn't how you want to be living your life. Like there's a part of your brain that says, it's okay for me to play a little bit. It's okay for me to have some fun.
Yeah.
Right?
There's that, and then like the other piece, which just really complicates it even more, was that we lived on this farm, so we were outside of town, and I was, of the 4 kids, I was quieter, and I don't know, when I was there, there was no kids around to babysit, so there was never any jobs, there was never any work, and so consequently, I've always struggled to get jobs, or to like, money is hard to come by. Like it's hard to get a job, and if I get a job, I have to work so hard and kill myself, like, you know, to feel deserving of the money, which probably goes back to because my parents never spent money on us, you know.
When you're thank you for sharing. When you're and when you're doing some journaling this week with some of the exercises and stuff that I'm going to give you, when you're having those strong feelings, ask yourself, how old do I feel in these feelings? Like, is this my 12-year-old that made these rules? You know, is it my adult that I am today making those rules? You know, how old am I in this? Just ask yourself that. Okay.
Okay. Thanks, Irene.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. And Christine, you wanted to speak? Did I get that? And there was somebody else.
Yes.
Okay, go ahead, sweetheart.
My relationship with money was very confusing at a very young age. My parents grew up poor during the Depression, and my mom was very poor, where she had a family of 10 children, and the kids were separated from the home to survive. And my dad's dad passed away when he was 12. So he was the man of the family. And the belief that they instilled on me was that you have to work hard for your money. And whether you work hard or not, you're still going to be poor. And people who have money are snobs. And so, you know, I grew up, I had friends with horses and snowmobiles and mini bikes and all the things that I wanted. You know, I wanted to be a part of, but I also was in 4-H at a very young age, at age 9, and I was a humanitarian. So humanitarian selflessness was the direction that I wanted to be in. And it didn't matter if I had money or not. That was my mindset, and that's been my mindset for years. That it didn't.
So your 9-year-old is the one that's been writing your money script and how you're going to live your life with your relationship with money?
Yes. Yeah. That I'm a humanitarian. I can be a teacher, but I don't have to earn a lot. However, you know, there's another part of me that says I can receive whatever God wants to give me. You know, I'm open to receive. So I have that conflict going on, but I have to be deserving of it. I have to work hard to get it.
There's a constant judgment, and there's a 9-year-old who's making all the rules for this. And so I'd ask you, Christine, because I think there's a lot of that for all of us. I can totally relate. Would you go to the 9-year-old for any other kind of advice, like, you know, for like where you might want to live, you know, today in your life? Would you pick a 9-year-old to give you your life's direction?
No.
But that's what we do, because we're living with these old ideas in our head that are running our lives without our choice. I had this story that the good people were poor and the bad people were rich from very, very young. And if you were rich, you were one of the bad guys. And I went to a church that kind of supported that, because I went to a church that was really excited about everybody making vows of poverty. All right?
And me too. I mean, I had the same thing, because you know, I had a belief that God, on my own, you know, in nature, and my own feeling that God was powerful and beautiful and loving. And then I'd go to church with friends or neighbors, and it would be hellfire and brimstone, and that confused me, and sin, that all confused me.
Right. And money is neutral.
And money wasn't. Money was, you know, the root of all evil. That's what I grew up with.
Yeah.
And what the Bible really said was the love of money, the love, making this be your higher power.
Yes, and I know that now. It's just being able to switch it, you know, to
change it.
To change it, because I'm very prosperous, and I can attract money and all different things like that. It's a matter of deserving it.
Right.
And holding on to it.
Right. And not give it away.
Right.
Thank you. Anybody else? And there's somebody else I'm supposed to, Uma, who else was
Yes,
on the?
Heather wanted to share, and then also Allison wanted to, if we have time.
Who else, honey?
Allison?
Okay, go ahead, Heather.
Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay. So I feel a little uncomfortable speaking to all of you strangers, but I just wanted to share that I recently went through a divorce and now cannot support myself. and I'm trying to figure out how to do that. But doing the exercise has made me realize that I've had a very very confusing and contrasting relationship with money. My parents got divorced when I was 5, and so I experienced 2 very different ways of relating to money and to love through both sides of my family. And I think I'm still trying to figure out like where I am in all of that. And yeah, so there's just a real struggle right now that I'm currently in of trying to figure out how to support myself. So yeah, thanks for listening. I really appreciate hearing everybody sharing as well.
Thank you for sharing, Hun. And I'm going to speak to that in just a minute, just about what you talked about, okay? So I'm just going to put a bookmark there. I'm going to let somebody else speak, and then the next teaching is going to be on what you just were speaking about. I'm sorry, I forgot who you said the other person was, Uma, that wants to speak.
Allison, and then if we have time, Tessa, also raise her hand, but if we have time.
Allison? Where is she? Oh, here she is. Allison, you want to speak?
Okay. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, we've got a few more minutes. Go ahead, honey.
Okay. Well, for me, what I noticed was money and love seem to be intertwined. When I was a child, my parents acted like they were poor, even though my father was an engineer and had a good job, but they were very tight and scared about money. And love was very scarce in our house. There was lots of talk about God's love, but my experience was really only of abuse, physical and emotional abuse, a lot of rage. So when I got old enough to work, even before I was legally old enough, I started working and earning money. And then when I went to college, my parents had paid for my sister to go to a very expensive religious college. And I had to go to a state school, and they only helped me with the first year. And then after that, that was it. So it was like, you know, feeling, you know, what happened then kind of reinforced my feeling, which was that I was a second-rate child next to my sister who was beloved. And so as time went on, I had some very generous, supportive bosses, and I was able to build a career on my own, and then eventually buy a home. And I asked my dad if he would help me with the down payment, and he said yes. But then my mother said no, so I had to borrow from a friend. So again, you know, I felt like the message was that I was not good enough. I was not loved. So, you know, as time went on, I've, you know, earned more because of my profession, software engineer. And it was always in the back of my mind that I was earning more than my older sister and my younger siblings. So that showed that I had value, you know, to me. And then when I was 45, I got sick, got bitten by a tick, had some physical traumas, and developed a chronic illness that took away my profession. And I had to fight. I had to fight the short-term disability company, the long-term disability company, and Social Security for my disability income. And, you know, since then, and then eventually I lost my home because of a chemical injury, toxins in the home. So it's like even though I was successful up until halfway through my life, it's like I feel like I'm still being punished. You know, I'm still being shown that I'm not good enough because despite years of, you know, decades now of struggle to understand my illness, struggles to find effective treatment, I'm still sick.
Mhm.
And so I have a lot of resentment towards a healthcare system which denies my illness and, you know, doesn't want to acknowledge it. And then yesterday I watched a video, an interview with a doctor or researcher who 10 years ago had discovered a retrovirus that was the cause of my illness that she believed was, and she was destroyed, attacked by the medical establishment. And I watched a video with her. She was arrested, fired, arrested, and her career was destroyed. And she's made a video and written a book which describes what happened to her and why. And it's about
So,
money. It's about money.
right.
It's because if the healthcare system had acknowledged her to be right, it would have cost them billions. Liability from the people who have the virus and have not been able to recover. So sorry. So I have a lot of anger around, you know, money and greedy people who let millions of people suffer
Right,
for
right.
money.
So I'm going to ask you to be looking at those feelings throughout the week. And a part of that is going to be like, there's this part of you that got your value, or you felt like love when you were making enough money. So you felt lovable when you made a lot of money. And when you got sick and you didn't have a lot of money, you no longer feel lovable and you feel cheated and ripped off, right?
Yeah.
You've got this tension around the whole money thing, and money is neutral. Money didn't make any of those rules, but it's what people have done with it, right? And
Yeah.
for it.
For it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we'll be going back. I want to give Tessa some time too, and thank you, Allison, for sharing. Tessa,
Okay.
where'd you go? So you've got like 2 minutes, Tess.
Thank you. Not to crosstalk, but I could definitely resonate with a lot of what Allison just said right previous to me. I looked at my money chart, and my first 2 blocks, I experienced both sides of the railroad tracks. So the not having anything, there not even being enough food in the house, to vacations and all kinds of opportunities. Fast forward, and I started working very, very young because that was, I realized that as you were talking, that was part of the god of our family, money, prestige, among other things that weren't necessarily healthy. And so in my 20s, late 20s, I mean, I got an incredible amount of self-worth from education, from vocation, from making money, being able to pay my bills, being able to save, being able to help others. Loss of job, loss of vocation definitely was a real awakening for me as to how much my identity was wrapped up, my self-worth was wrapped up in how much money I made, how much money was in the bank, what I could do to help others financially, and how I was exercising vocation, what kind of title I had in the world. So I could also resonate with others who spoke about loss of financial resources as instigating a great deal of grief, and I would further say confusion, because somebody brought up I believe it was you said the lovability aspect.
Right.
I don't know that I would have used that word until I heard you say it. Deserving, I guess. Like, I always wanted to be on the other side of the equation. I had that, part of me had that Mother Teresa kind of view. I'm going to grow up and I'm going to take care of the world. And so to be,
then I'll be worthy. Then I'll be okay. I'll be good enough.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so then as an adult, finding that so often I'm on the receiving end with incredible gratitude, But there's part of me that's like, just you wait till you're back on top. You're gonna be Santa Claus and giving it all, giving it all away. And so there's fits and starts around my ability to work, and every fit and start is like a punch to the self-esteem. And I don't want to have that relationship with money anymore.
Right. Thanks, Tess. And then there'll be other opportunities for you guys to talk, and especially for you all to put your ideas and your questions or your experiences in the Facebook Live groups, okay? Karen and I are going to take those very seriously. Karen, I'm just going to do this little teaching on transition, and then I'd like you to spend some time just sharing anything that's come up for you around this, okay? So transition is not change, okay? Someone said they got divorced. Someone said somebody died. And we have a tendency to call that change. Change is much simpler than transition. Change is when you get a new car and you have to learn how to use a new dashboard. You know, the brake isn't in the same place or whatever. You know, you've got to do things differently, but you personally do not have to change. You personally are still the same human being. You've just got a new car. Transition is something has ended. A way you've identified yourself has ended. Now you're in the hallway and you've got to create a new way of being. This money stuff is an old way that we have been. And I want you to be exploring that this week. I'm going to give you some homework that's going to make you have a noticing about how you're living with money this week, all right? When we transition, when we get a divorce, when somebody dies, when there's a flipping pandemic and people lose their jobs, the way we identify ourselves changes. Susan's in a huge change out in California now, living in a new house, living in a whole new way. The way she's earning money in that right now is very different in your life, right, Susan? So everything's changing. But it's transitioning, different than change. So it's like in the change and transition, the canoe gets tipped over and everybody's falling out of the canoe and floundering around in the water trying to find some shore, trying to find some way to get some grounding underneath us, to get our feet on something firm. It's very disrupting. Okay? Then we get up on shore, we're standing there, we're soaking wet. Who are we? Where do we want to go? What do we want to be? That's that hallway of not knowing, that hallway of the old ways not working, but the new way has not been established yet. So I want you to do some journaling about that going forward. Probably not going to have too much time to do that right now, but I just want you to approach it a little bit where you look at what has disrupted, what has changed, why isn't your relationship with money working now? Like, who was it? Suzanne Bolton was saying, the way my father lived with money, she watched him die. It doesn't sound, I'm making some assumptions here, Susan. If I'm off base, you can let me know. But the way her father died seems sad. He never got to the joy of what he had accumulated. He was so busy accumulating and hoarding and saving for something that was going to finally be enough. But the joy, the moments of his life that could have been joyful didn't happen. My guess is that Susan doesn't want to end her life that way. So she's not going to be in relationship with, or she wouldn't be on this workshop, and she and I talked a little bit beforehand. She's not going to be in this life anymore with money the way she's been with money, but she doesn't know how she's going to be with money. So I want you to put down what has changed, and then what don't you want from that old world. There may be some things you do want. You know, you like kind of draw a line in the sand. What do I want to bring from that old world? But what do I want to leave behind with that old identity? Where am I standing right now? Just know that right now you're standing in the unknown, in the new beginnings, in the have to reinvent yourself. And then start to look out ahead. What do I want to walk into? What might I want out there in possibility? One of the things I would want for you is some peace. In peace, have some freedom, some neutrality. And I'm sure there's other things too. And this isn't about, well, I want, $20,000 cash in the bank. I mean, that's fine. Okay, you can put a number on it. I want, I want a new outfit. It's more like, what do I want to experience? What do I want to feel? I would imagine, or would suggest that maybe the word freedom might be on that list. Play, joy, and have a noticing. How much do I have in that in my life, and how much do I want of that? So play around with that. What would I want to be stepping into in this relationship with money? I hope that makes sense to you guys. And that's like, I'm going to give you about 3 minutes right now just to journal a little tiny bit to get yourself started on that. And you certainly are going to have lots of opportunity after we hang up to continue with the writing. This is you exploring you, your beliefs. What have they cost you? And what do you want going into your future? So I'm going to give you 3 minutes, and then Karen's going to talk to us a little bit about anything that's come up for you, Karen, okay? So take a deep breath.
So what is the question for people, Irene, again?
The 3 things about transition, like what am I leaving? What has changed in your transition around who you want to be with money? Around this hallway that you're standing in right now that you haven't established yourself. You're not quite sure who you are yet, but you know what you're not. And then the third one is, what do you want to experience going forward? More than what you want to collect, what feelings do you want to experience? How do you want to be in your life? It's not going to be a final, it's just a beginning of how you look at this transition in your relationship with money. Take a deep breath. One thing I want you to notice when you're writing is I want you to notice what you're afraid to look at. When we're journaling is not so much about what we're writing, it's about what we're listening to inside. Good journalers are people who are good listeners to themselves, and they're not afraid to hear what they have to say, what their gut is telling them. Take a deep breath, and I'll come back and just like, Uma will let us know when the 3 minutes is up. Okay, take a deep breath, everyone. That writing should have probably just been a beginning for you. And the reason I'm always asking people to write on unlined paper is because much more will come out. We get less in our heads when the paper's unlined. I'm going to stand up for a minute. I want to show you on this table. So I recommend these for journaling when I teach journaling. They're just little cheap sketch pads. You can get at like Walmart or well, you know. The reason you get them to use for a journal, the unlined paper, they're less than $10, okay? Lots of times you can get them for less than $5. The reason you want them spiraled is so they don't fall apart. But this can become like your best friend about anything that's going on in your life when you learn to start really listening to yourself. Because right now, I think at the very least, we have all seen or heard other people share with us like how money, the big relationship in our lives with money, is so much of it is being pushed around by our little kids, the little kids inside of us. Karen, I'd like you to share on your experience and anything that's come up for you, okay?
Oh, sure. Hi, everybody. I know a few of you. I don't know everybody. I know probably you've all studied with Irene, as have I. I did a boatload of workshops with her.
There are people here who haven't, who don't know me from a hole in the ground.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, there you go. And I also taught with Irene. We did a workshop with various titles, but ultimately it wound up to be Find Your Voice, Find Your Power. And so I'm delighted to be here today and to also listen. Boy, something came up for me about everybody's share. I mean, there was just some kind of belief system. And I'll give you a little bit about my background. I came from an alcoholic family, and both my parents had been raised very poor. And so there was always this panic. I remember one workshop I did with Irene years ago about money. And she had us write our family history with money, which is also a very interesting exercise you might want to attempt this week. And it goes with this chapter thing that we did earlier. But when I wrote mine and then shared it with somebody, the word that came up when the person heard it was panic, absolute panic. I was raised with panic around money. When I was a kid, you know, my father had a couple of businesses. He lost them both, one while he was alcoholic and the other one after he got sober. And the second one that he lost, a small little tiny business, he wound up to be $450,000 in debt to the federal government. So of course I have boatloads of fear about money, and I've also been doing over the last. So I then married a guy who was very solid and very stable, and I was raised the same thing that so many people are talking about. I was raised in the Catholic Church. I was raised to be selfless, so that any money, there was no self-care involved in the money situation. And as I was listening to people, I heard Mother Teresa. I understand the Mother Teresa thing. I understand, you know, I'm going to be Mother Teresa. You know, money is the root of all evil, all of that. And some of the stuff that I wrote down, one of the things that came out of my marriage, which I did not know when I married him, he was a very shut down guy, but he didn't drink. So I thought that was a plus. And, but he was very shut down, but he seemed very solid and very ambitious. And I was always taught that the reason that a girl goes to college is to become a teacher or a nurse, but to really marry a man, you'll have the babies, I will take care of them, and I will help educate my children, and I will marry a man who takes care of me. And that's exactly what I did. And I married a person who, because I didn't realize this until I did all this work around money, I had this desperate need to be rescued. This desperate need to be rescued. And one of the things that Irene and I talked about this week, one of the beliefs that I have had about everything, and I get so much resistance when I have to try something new, I don't know how. It doesn't matter what the thing is. I don't know how, okay? And I would invite you all to look at that, because I'm seeing it in a lot of the, I'm reading the chats as Irene is talking, and what I'm seeing is, you know, I don't know what the next step is. I don't know what I can do. I don't know how. And that to me, so I am on the, I'm in 2 money programs. I'm in the 12-step programs about money, one of which is Debtors Anonymous. And I've never been in debt, but I have debted myself, like so many other people that I've heard. I came into money after my divorce. Okay, I got a chunk of money after my divorce, and I've spent it down, trying to figure out like what's the next step. How do I make my own money? How do I be self-supporting through my own contributions? That's a DA principle. So I did work in that program, but the real thing for me has been under earning, and it's about realizing my own value and my own worth, and realizing that I have skills and talents about it. So going into this, and I've done boatloads of work about women's empowerment, about money, about women's sexuality, about public speaking. I teach public speaking all the time, and I worked for an international company with that, but always under earning all the time. And it was because I don't know how. So a few years ago, I got the privilege of I'm on the board of the Karen Foundation, not named after me. And in that foundation, we have these big galas to raise money every year. And there's a lot of wealthy people on that board. But I got the opportunity. Paul Williams made millions of dollars and lost it all to his addiction. But he said the thing that was underneath all of it was, I don't know how. He couldn't believe he wrote music. He couldn't believe he was successful. But underneath it all, he said the thing that helped turn that around was, I don't know how, but something inside me does. And that has sort of propelled me forward. So that's a little bit about my story. But Irene, are there questions you want to ask me that you'd like me to address?
I think we'll save that for Tuesday. You got cut off a little bit, and one of the things that Karen was saying, because I've heard the story before and I love it, it was Paul Williams, the music producer, that she got to be with, and in his talk, he blew through a ton of money in his insanity. And he got himself out of it. But one of the things that he said was, I don't know what to do, is often how he approaches stuff, but something inside of me does. And that is like my total belief for everyone, that we have a guidance inside of us when we learn how to get through all the bullshit, all the stories and all the old beliefs that we're holding on to, and we can sit and listen to the quiet within us. We usually get guided. I'm not going to say usually, I'm going to say we always get guided. We're not always courageous enough to follow the guidance, but the guidance is there. First, we have to unblock from all this blah, 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 blah. So
and Irene, yeah, and what you're hitting on right here is, for me, what came up, and this is where people feel it in their bodies. So again, I would invite what Irene says, to feel it in your body, feel where it lands. And resistance. I know for me, even when Irene first asked me to teach a workshop with her, the other one that we taught, she said to me, "You don't look very enthusiastic." she said, in my 30 years of teaching workshops, I've never asked anybody else to teach with me. She said, you don't look very pleased. And I said to her, it's not that I'm not honored. I said, it's because I'm terrified. And what you're seeing is resistance. What you are seeing come up in my body. So I would invite all of you, when this comes up, to feel where the resistance is, because it's like a block. It's like for me, it's like a brick. And I'm just going to share one thing very quickly that I will teach you that relates to what Irene was talking about earlier, which is something called surfing your emotions. So let's say you're feeling resistance right now to the fact I'm talking about resistance, but feel into your body, and generally it will land in your chin, it'll land in your jaw, in your throat, in your heart chakra, in that area, or your power chakra. So I know frequently it lands in one of these two places for me. And so feel into that, just feel it, and no judgment about it, like you're getting resistance or you're getting resentful about this conversation or whatever. Feel into it, no judgment, and then start breathing deeply. And really pay attention to the out breath, and just pay attention to where it's landing in your body. So maybe it started in the jaw, but now it's moving down to the heart or to your power chakra. You keep breathing, and just keep paying attention to the out breath, and allow it to gently move through your body without judgment. It's not a, just because you're feeling resentful or jealous or resistant or whatever negative emotion is coming up, allow it to go through your body, because it will start to dissipate. It will start to dissipate and you can relax. And I've had to do that many times on this journey that I've been on. And I can get into that more at some other time. But I just want to give you a little something to take with you. And it's called Surfing Your Emotions. So there you go.
Thank you. So that's that whole idea of not do why, but what am I feeling? What am I? Just hang out with the what's. So I'm going to give you your homework, guys, okay? I'm going to give you a couple of concepts that I want you to hang on to. One is, this is in a lot of the money books, all right? Basically, what you're going to be doing this week are these 3 practices. You're going to record, track all of your spending. You're not going to change it. You're not going to change it. You're just going to keep track of it. How do I spend my money? Or for some of you, how do I not spend money? What do I look at and think, Suzanne, this one's particularly for you. I'm picking on you, Suzanne. What did I look at, or what did I think I might like, but I wouldn't let myself have it? So you're just going to notice, what do I spend my money on, and what do I not spend my money on? Just have a noticing. Don't change anything. You just have to know where you're standing, what's going on with you, all right? The second thing I want you to do is journal. Journal and just let yourself explore some of the questions we talked about today around your 6 chapter titles, around your relationship with resistance, around your beliefs, what's come up for you. You don't have to make sentences. You don't have to worry about spelling. You just have to listen to yourself. Because as you start to watch your thoughts and what's going on, you're going to start getting some feelings. Because if you have to pause for a moment just to notice what you're doing with your money or what you're not doing with your money, that can make you very uncomfortable. That's that tipping the canoe over in this transition. And the third thing is to join us on Facebook with the Facebook group so that we can all support each other and we can give you more assignments during the week. I want you to experience this transition, or experience just what it's feeling like, just to be looking at this very dynamic relationship that we all have with money. It tells us so much about our histories. So this is like the game plan. Also would like you to notice, when you're noticing how you're spending money or not spending money, I want you to notice how you are doing unsecured debt. So there's no unsecured debt. What that means is if I buy a house, my debt is secured. I've changed my money into an asset. If I sell the house, I can pay the bank back. That's the game plan, right? That's secured debt. If you want to get out of debt, you need to have no unsecured debt. Credit cards are unsecured debt. Credit cards are debting your future. As my mom used to say, credit cards eat at the table with you. They're constant. So just have a noticing, all right? Just have a noticing. I just want to introduce that whole idea about no unsecured debt. The other thing is to notice, do not say no to money. Notice the ways in which you don't say yes to money. Somebody may want to treat you and you go, oh, no, I'll take care of it. Somebody wants to offer you something, you don't let it in. Notice how you say no to money. Do not say no to money, all right? That's the way you're going to be observing what you're doing with your relationship with money. And the third thing is to notice, and we'll go over this again, we'll go over this on Tuesday. The third thing to notice is, or one of the Under Earners Anonymous kind of guidelines is, they say do not take work that pays you less than you need. I say do not keep work that pays you less than you need. I think to get out of debt, we need to move into whatever's going to pay us right now. What we have to get is that we don't have to stay there. I started out in my career cleaning houses for people, ironing, cleaning toilets in a nursing home. It's not where I wanted to stay, but it was on the journey. Okay, nothing, I don't believe I'm too good to do anything. I also know that I don't need to stay in those jobs. Is this making sense? Can I see some nods or hands if you're getting like what your homework's about, guys? If you can't join us at noontime for the Facebook Lives, if that doesn't work with your schedule, just know that you can go in there ahead of time. You can leave us some comments or some posts, and we'll be looking at what your questions or your difficulties or your successes are. All right. And the lives will be on, there'll be a recording. The lives will be on the Facebook page, so you can look at them when you have time. You just won't be able to participate. Okay, I hope this was helpful for you guys. If you have any questions, please go to the Facebook Live and give them to us. We'll be watching them. And we'll try to respond in a way that will serve you, all right? This can be an important week for you. We can make this happen together. Stand in this transition and just know what Paul Williams and Karen said. You may not know what to do, what your next step will be, but something inside of you does. All right. Namaste to you all. Blessings and peace.
I unmuted you. You want to say bye?
Thank you.
Bye. Love everybody.
Bye.
Nice
Thank you
being
so
here.
much.
Nice to see
Thank
everybody.
you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
I love you.
Everyone.